welcome to another episode of the Home Market Gardener. Again, this series is about how I am growing organic vegetables in my home market garden. So today I'm installing tape drip irrigation. It has emitters every 12 inches. On the end, I'm installing closed valve so the water doesn't continue, and it has a loop right here that I could put a stake in. So that goes down on the far end. I have a 3/4 inch white tubing. I'll show you a little bit more later. And this piece, the on-off valve, this way I can turn off any rows if I need to. You poke a hole in the white poly tubing, this goes in, and these are reverse thread. You open up your tape, you get it on as far as it's going to go, and then you reverse thread it. So that's just a short section of what I have. I've got 3 going down my 40-foot rows. I'm working on this bed right now. That's basically the setup. You have this shut-off valve, you have the plug at the end. You could put a wire staple right here to keep it from moving. And I have my emitters, which are here, facing down. I'll grab the camera, I'll give you some close-ups on a lot of the other components. So today we are talking about drip irrigation. I'll briefly talk about my wobbler system. Still working on that. I'm going back and forth between the mini wobblers and the large wobblers. My intent is to have 2 types of irrigation here. The wobbler, or the overhead, is if I'm direct sowing, I have a way to really water them in. And then once my plants start to get established, I want to be very mindful of how much water I'm using and have the least amount of waste. Let me go ahead and demonstrate how I'm going to poke a hole. And this is they said it's an 8mm punch. And again, it's for the 3/4 inch white poly tubing to insert this shut-off valve. So basically I'm going to try and line it up where I want my drip irrigation to go. And I'm going to bring it right about here. And you just wiggle it back just a little bit, and you can see we have a hole. Now I'm going to insert this end right here. All right, and it just snaps in place, and I'm going to turn it off for right now. Now, I want to make sure I have an emitter right at the end here, which I do, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my tape. All right, it's fairly easy to cut. This is the roll that I have. What's it say? It's got spacing every 12 inches, 0.36 gallons per hour, and that's, I forget how they calculate that, and that's at, so 0.36 gallons per hour at 10 psi. So I do have some regulators and stuff I will show you in just a minute. Let me go ahead and install this section of drip tape. And you just got to have a little patience and work it in. Get it to where it's all the way seated there, and then reverse thread. Okay? And then you turn it on. And basically that's how simple it is to install the drip irrigation. I'm going to do 2 more rows and we'll come back and talk about it. Then I have my 2 short beds to do. So again, just to recap, have a hole punch. That punches a hole in the 3/4 inch tubing. You could use 1/2 inch. I do have some 1/2 inch here. I've opted to go with the 3/4 inch and my shut-off valves, but they do work on the 1/2 inch. Again, this is a 1/2 inch drip tape. And again, on the end, I have this component which caps it off. Just slips on, and it has, again, that little hoop here that I can put a metal stake in and keep this tape from pulling this way. Let's take a look at some of the other components, and then I'll go ahead and finish installing this bed's drip irrigation. This is a look at the manifold system that I've installed. Now, eventually, this system will be tied into my well. Right now, I have it coming off the house water. I have a filter. I split it so I can use my hose link. And then I have a short section of hose here. So you can see now, I'll charge it up. Now, I have a flush out valve at the end, and it might take a minute to build up pressure. And we have here a regulator, and this will show the actual pressure here in just a little bit. It might take a minute, and that'll be the pressure leaving. There we go. We're starting to come up the pressure now. So what happens is once it fills up all of that drip tape, then it comes up to pressure. So you can see coming out of my filter, I also have another small filter here. We're at just over 50 psi. You have to step it down, and we're just over 10 psi. So everything's functioning as it should. There's the drip irrigation working as it should. A minute ago, I had talked about having staples down at the end here. This is not leaking. It's coming. I have an emitter right over here, so if I stop the flow of water, you see it's not leaking down the end. So these work really well. Again, I have an emitter right here, so it looks like it's dripping out of our fittings, but it's not. So the plan right now is to have 3 on each row. Here's the one I just installed, and there it is running all the way down. I have 2 more to run, and then I'll do the other 2 beds, and we'll come back and have a little bit more of a discussion on my wobbler irrigation here. All right, it's about 2 hours later. I did take a short lunch break, and I had to locate some other pieces and some tools, but the tape drip irrigation is installed. I've got 3 drip lines per bed. Back over here next to my trellis, and I'll get you a better view of it, I ran 1 line that is going to water my mulberries and my zucchini, and I have 2 grow bags. Okay, so they're a cloth material. You get air pruning of the roots. I did rig it so I can hook up a maxi jet. I have 1 in each grow bag. I've installed a battery operated timer for now, and I did have a couple of blowouts where I did not tighten the connection good enough. So now it's leak checking it. If this works out good, I'll figure out what the amount of time is. So right now I'm going to go every day 50 minutes at about 8 a.m. We'll see how that works. Eventually I will tee off and go into my greenhouse and run this drip tape irrigation into my Birdie's raised garden beds. So let me grab the camera and I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the completed components that I've installed. There's a view of the grow bags with the maxi jets. These are, I think, they run about 5 gallons per hour. And I'll come back over here and we'll get a look. So there's my timer, just testing it out. My regulator. So we're losing some pressure going through the timer. We're at about 20 psi. Ultimately, we're running here at 8 psi. There's a close-up. All right. And what I'm looking for, and I'm already seeing good signs, is that the beds have a darker color, indicating that the drip irrigation is working, and it's working efficiently. This is looking back. Now I do have some minor adjustments. Again, this is a test to see how this works. But you can see the difference in the paths and the actual bed, the market garden bed. I think this is going to work out just fine. I'm going to do a separate video on my over here, the wobblers. It's looking good, and you can see how efficient it works. Now these emitters, as I said earlier, are about 12 inches apart, but for now I'm hung up on my key lime tree. For now, I think that's going to work out good, and eventually I'll run that into the greenhouse and have my Birdie's raised garden beds on drip as well. There you have it. Drip irrigation for my home market garden. Listen folks, there's a lot of ways you can water your garden. This is what I'm doing, so for my context, it's going to work well. I'm very pleased with it. I have to work on my wobbler sprinkler system yet. I have two there right now. They have the mini wobbler heads. I did start out with the large. It was too large of a pattern, so I've got to play around with that a little bit more. I'll do a video once I figure out what's going on there, and down the road as I run my drip irrigation into the greenhouse, I'll show you what I did there. So in the meantime, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys are subscribing, and as I promised, we're getting into more content here, and I hope that helped. There's a lot of videos out there. You go to the manufacturer's websites, they give you a lot of instructional videos on how to install it. Again, this is about my home market garden. All right, I'll see you at the next video.